You need truth and life. Here is the Brother Leon Show. You better recognize.
Hey, what's going on, listeners? This is your boy, Brother Leon, and you are tuning into another episode of the Brother Leon Show. Today, we are in a time of double battles. The battle for justice, as well as being in the midst of a pandemic and trying to operate and function even in that. So we need to pray for Minneapolis. We need to pray for the people. But also, we need to call on the carpet those who are going to remain silent, because Martin Luther King said this: we will not remember the words of our enemy, but we will remember the silence of our friends. And so I take the task of some in the evangelical church community, some even in the faith community, that lead black congregations, multicultural congregations. And so I have challenged them to begin to speak on the issue of white privilege, especially if that privilege is weaponized to harm or even kill black and brown people and communities. I've challenged them in that. I've challenged them to talk about racism, and racism from a historical aspect. Because in order to cast the devil out, you have to name what that devil is. Because Jesus even said it himself: "Thou deaf and dumb spirit, come out." And that is what is happening right now. People are deaf and people are dumb. Seriously. You're deaf when you are ignoring the cries, when you see it on TV and still say it's a matter of faith. It's not only a matter of faith, it's a matter of principle. And to sit up here and to tell people that they need to forgive and that God is going to hold them in condemnation and judgment because they do not forgive. But you miss the other part of that argument and what you're saying in that, because you will not bring any type of responsibility or accountability on the person doing the wrongdoing. So it's easy to tell black people to forgive and yet keep the hands clean of the white oppressor. And the crazy part about it is that we talk about the shield of faith. So I'm going to call this message the white shield of faith, which bashes the black people's salvation. Because black people use their salvation as a helmet at times to keep them sane, to deal with the issues of being black in a white oppressive society. So you could call me all kinds of things right now. You could call me a race baiter. You could call me racist. And I've told you that there is no black person, including me, that could ever be racist, because I can't stop a person from voting. Never have. Never stop a person from owning property. And never have I ever been able to put a person in slavery on American soil. None of my people were able to do it, and neither can I, just by definition alone. So how can I be racist? Prejudice, yes. But racist, never. So on that note, let's go to the scriptures. And as I pull it up on my Bible app, I'm not going to be long today. I know that this is going to be short, powerful, and sweet. Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? See, there it is right there. When you tell people that they need to forgive, you are beholding something that's in somebody else's eye, but don't want to acknowledge that which is in your eye, or that system or the instruments of racism that have been oppressive to black people. So my question is, how is it that you can say that and say it with impunity? I'm going to read it again. Matthew chapter 7, verse 3. And why beholdest thou the mote that is in thy brother's eye, but considerest not the beam that is in thine own eye? Or how wilt thou say to thy brother, let me pull out the mote. Let me pull out the mote out of thine eye, and behold, a beam is in thine own eye. Thou hypocrite, there it is. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, and then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote of thy brother's eye. See, that's what needs to happen. There needs to be clarity, because on one hand, you can say that this is an issue of faith, but forget about the principle behind it. We can sit up here and say that this is nothing but the devil, but then don't even acknowledge what devil it is, especially to my deliverance people. You have to acknowledge what that devil is to effectively fight against it and cast it out. Call that thing what it is. If it's racism, call it racism. If it's hatred, call it hatred. If it's murder, call it murder. If it's white supremacy, call it white supremacy. If it's white weaponized privilege, call it that. Because that is what is needed right now in order to cast it out. But it first has to start with the house of God, because there is so much racism in the house of God, overt and covert. And the crazy part about it is that you have white leaders who have taken white people, who have taken not only black people's money, but Spanish people's money, but will not address the issues in the black and brown communities. And the crazy part about it, man, we've been shouting all day long. There are some white people, man, if you didn't know any better, you swear they was black. Seriously. But yet, when it comes to the community, when it comes to the issues, they remain silent, or they won't even call it for what it is. Call a spade, just like you talk about abortion, just like you talk about homosexuality, just like you talk about it. Because there needs to be the conversation of humanity. Because as long as you don't recognize a person's humanity, you label them, and and your conscience is deaf to them. You could talk about abortion all day long, but still remain silent when you see a 12-year-old boy get shot, and then vilify his parents and change the narrative and say that if his parents didn't have a criminal background, this boy would have been home and wouldn't have got shot. But there are white boys that play in the park with guns, and they are not shot. So you got to get that whole thing and have clarity. If you're going to speak on the faith part, speak on the historical part. Because unless we learn from our history, we are doomed to repeat it. And that goes all the way and around. And even though God can redeem the time, we have to have redemption in ourselves to be able to see with the eyes of compassion and see through the eyes of the oppressed, and allow God to change us so that we can help that issue. Because all it is us passing by and then casting condemnation and judgment because we see unforgiveness in the people who have been victimized. And then we have the nerve to call it an excuse. The people that say that a lot of times are black people that have been assimilated. They have been assimilated to be pawns to be used by white supremacy because they have a level of acceptance. They've been given a level of privilege and power by the white society and community that will enable them, and then they will in turn use them against the black race and the black community when issues of race and injustice come up. You will always see, even in media, black people looting. You will always see police using tear gas and rubber bullets on black bodies, but you've never seen tear gas. You've never seen any type of thing like that with the protesters protesting about the shut-in orders on the Capitol steps, and they were white. The narrative is changed. The story is changed. The labels are given when you see black bodies. But when you see white protesters, look at the protests at Penn State when they got rid of Joe Paterno. Look at when sports teams win and what happens. How the media calls one thing, calls one race one thing, and another race something else. So you see the contrast. So you can't sit up here and tell me that justice cannot see this, and that the police do not know how to act, and that prosecutors do not know how to act, because we saw how they acted when it came to the case of Muhammad Noor in 2017 to 2019, and Jennifer Damon when he shot that woman, and how they vilified him as a police officer and talked about his training and talked about his religious background and saying that he was an affirmative action hire, but they did not vilify the victim. But you always see it flipped around when it's a white cop and a black victim. They vilify the black victim, and that is what I mean when I say they kill us twice. So the notion of us having to forgive without anyone taking responsibility, man, come on, we kicking that out of here today. I'm serious. And the crazy part about it is that most of the time you hear it from white preachers about forgiveness, but yet nothing is said. Nothing is said about the responsibility and the accountability of the injustice from white police officers and white people that exercise this. I'm serious. I'm like, yo, if you weren't offended by seeing that man cry that he can't breathe and watch him die on national TV, watch him die on YouTube, it's something wrong with you. To sit up here and to say, yo, we need to forgive. Man, we have had too much kumbaya. And we have been forgiving. And we have been too forgetting. But the crazy part about all of this is that they will not say that to the Jewish community. The Jewish community has put itself in a place where they will not forget. And they will not forgive. Because they swore to themselves that we will never be in that place of oppression ever again when it came to the Holocaust. And so black people, I'm telling you this right now. This is what Brother Leon says to you. You got to have that type of mindset that we are not going to allow this to happen to us again. And we have those who have assimilated that are being used by white supremacy and the spirit of racism to try to tell you what to do with your faith. You need to use your faith to make sure that oppression does not rise up a second time. And that is the word of the Lord. So let me go back here. Verse 5 of Matthew chapter 7. Thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of thine own eye, then thou shalt see clearly to cast out the mote out of thy brother's eye. So in order for clarity to come, you got to take and cast that mess out of you first before you can start telling your brother what he need to do and want to cast out stuff and take stuff out of his eye. So there needs to come responsibility on both sides. The responsibility of our white brethren to identify and recognize that this is a problem. And not just skate around it and say that the killing needs to stop and that we need to call our representatives. No, y'all need to have conferences. Just like you have conferences for the prophetic and activations and things of that nature, you need to have conferences that are going to talk about overcoming the spirit of racism, overcoming the spirit of white supremacy, overcoming the spirit of white privilege. And you need to do lives. And you need to have call-in conferences, just like you can have for everything else. Because until that conversation happens with our white brothers and sisters, they will use the white shield of faith to block things and tell the black community that they need to forgive. And we have seen this trick in slavery times when they had the black slave preacher, the plantation preacher, tell the slaves, serve and obey your masters. But this is a time that we need the full counsel of God. And we need the full counsel of God and the wisdom of God to take down and dismantle this system. But this system has integrated itself even in the church. Because there were no voices that were protesting when there was a mock dummy hanging from a noose burning in front of a church. Seriously, There was no protest from our evangelical brothers or even some of our white brothers when there was a dummy of President Obama with a noose around his neck hanging and burning in front of a church. You see how symbolic that is? Do you see how the devil has used mockery? Because we can sit up here and say, by this, talking about Jesus, talking about love, by this shall all men know that you are my disciples indeed, when you have love towards one another. Except if that person is gay, except if that person is President Obama, except if that person has abortions, except if that person is transgender, except if that person is Mexican or illegal, except if that person is black, except if that person is biracial, except if that person is a lesbian. We have so many exceptions, and we swear up and down that the Bible doesn't mean what it means. And we even made excuses for why our churches need to be open. Even in the midst of pandemic, you're still supposed to guard the flock of God. But yet we make so many excuses and we cherry pick. That Romans 13 don't mean what it says. We say, no, it don't mean that when it comes to evil men. So I guess the evil men are the governors that are trying to preserve life. But yet you say nothing about our current president that talks about Africa as a shithole nations, that talks about NFL athletes protesting, saying fire those sons of bitches, that talks about Charlottesville, that there are good people on both sides. But yet, this is what we hear. So you have the luxury and you have the privilege of cherry picking what you choose to believe and what you want to preach, because you were insulated by white privilege. And you're not going to get out here and really support, because if you get out here and talk about it, then you're going to be labeled as a race traitor and people are going to boycott you and take away your funding. So your funding is more important to you than the issue that is at hand. But I am here to tell you today that if a man lose his life, he shall yet find it. So I'm telling you right now, my white brothers and sisters, if you want to make a difference, be willing to sacrifice. Because the black people have been sacrificing for years, have made the ultimate sacrifice, even in the military, going to wars to fight for freedom in America, but can't even get that same freedom at home. And it's a sin and it's an atrocity that even after slavery, the black man was not given land. But the crazy part about it is that if you fought over in Ireland, you were given Native Americans land if you came over here to the States. So, yeah, I'm saying it. I'm saying it today. But something has to give. So I want to read you something. I want to read you something that I posted on Facebook. And here's what I said. The crazy part in all of this is that we as black people are still being told to forgive no matter what. My question is, when will you call on the carpet the oppressors to stop what they are doing? The white shield of faith is destroying the black people's salvation, which at times is their salvation that keeps them sane. So if this is a spiritual thing, then look at the principle behind it and call it for what it is. White supremacy, white privilege, and racism. No white person will ever know the life of a black person, nor how it is to live as a black person. Messages of faith mustn't tell the victims of white supremacy, white privilege, and racism what they need to do without saying something to the instruments, systems, and people that promoted and protected faith-based and all. We've prayed on our knees. The oppression you see today is a knee on the neck, keeping the black man down and killing him. Do you now believe the saying that the white man is keeping us down when you see it in recent news and in the silent in white churches? Just to note, I'm not race baiting, just giving you an uncomfortable truth. Look at history if you're going to speak from the prophetic and apostolic voices before you condemn unforgiveness on the black race. That is what I said. And I said this because I was reading a dear gentleman's post who, he has a podcast and he's written books and everything of that nature. But the thing is that it always comes down to an issue of forgiveness. We have been forgiving as black people, but yet no one calls white people on the carpet for the stuff that they do. Seriously, they won't address it in churches. They won't address it with the prophetic voice. And there are senior leaders who are prophets, and yet they still skip around and dance around this problem. And that is what infuriates me and frustrates me the most, because you see it. And it is almost like you are like the Levi and the Pharisee that sees the man laying on the side of the road, but yet goes another way. And then we get angry when somebody who is not even connected to the church goes to where the hurt is, picks the man up, puts him on his donkey, takes him to an inn, and pours in oil and wine that you should have poured in. And then we have the audacity to talk about the Nation of Islam taking men. We have the audacity to say that these new world religions are taking our men, are taking our sons and daughters, are taking our women. But yet we as the church have allowed white supremacy to flourish. We have allowed racism to flourish. And we do not address the problems in the community. So if you cannot address the problem in the community, why get mad when somebody else does it and then reaps a harvest of souls that now may not even be one for Christ? You just passed up an opportunity, but yet want to evangelize the world. So my question is that if we are in the army of the Lord, the Bible says endure hardness as a good soldier. God will send you into places that are hard. But yet we like the comfortability of conferences. We like the comfortability of being able to put out a live and be able to put up a video and tell people, oh, this ain't nothing but the devil. Call what that devil is. Do me that favor. Say what it is. And don't skip around the issue. But yet there have been people who have been on the air for decades and will not say anything. They will not address this issue because they are afraid. Their bottom line, their brand, their monies are at stake. So they'll take and skip around it to act like it, but they really ain't going to try to fix it. So black people, wake up, and you better see where your money is going at. You better see where your vote is going at. Because I'm going to tell you right now that there are people who are going to sell you out for the sake of money, for the sake of 15 minutes of fame. And I ain't going to lie, I don't put everything on the line. I'm trying to become a pastor with a certain organization, and I know right now, I'm like, man, look, I'm getting ready to ask some hard questions, because if they can't say anything about what is going on right now, then I'm not going to be a part of that organization. Because I look at it like this. If you can have black people in your church and have a multicultural ministry and organization and do not even address these issues, but yet want to try to make salvation a whole aspect of it, it's not only salvation for our souls, it's salvation for our bodies. If you can't even want to save my community or even want to go out here and help in the struggle, I can't be a part of that, because you were part of the problem when you were silent. I can't be a part of that. I don't care what you make me. I can't be a part of it. So let's go over here to Psalms 33. And so today we're going to call this message the white shield of faith. So Psalms 33, as I pull it up on the Bible app, I want you guys to know that Brother Leon, he is not racist. That Brother Leon is not anti-cop, nor is he anti-church, nor is he anti-white people. I love everyone, but I'm getting sick and tired of seeing the systems of men used to destroy other men. even in law enforcement. So, I'm not anti-cop, I'm anti-road cop. I'm anti the whole machine that is used to try to say what black people are and change the narrative and try to change the definition. I'm serious. You see all kinds of stuff going on at Fox. You see all kinds of stuff. Soon as something like this happens, they want to bring up somebody's past, or they want to get a talking voice that's supposed to represent the black community and tell the black community what it needs to do. Or better yet, don't even say nothing about it. Focus on something else because it's too hot. And that's what you see. Seriously. So I want to come out of Psalms 33, verse 4. For the word of the Lord is right, and all his works are done in truth. So if we are going to do the work of deliverance, we do the work of deliverance in truth. We identify the problem. We identify the devil. We realize that there is a pathway that devil has taken, and it is in there and entrenched by systems, by laws. And so when we cast that devil out, we call it for what it is. We bind, we cast it out, and then we begin to loose. And as we are loosing, we call in what needs to be said. We call in the angels of the Lord. We call in the promises of God. But then there has to come a healing, and we have to begin to fill the house. And not only that, but we restore. We restore because the Bible says if the thief be found, he will have to restore. He has to restore 7 times what he stole. So not only do we restore spiritually, but we restore physically and financially. Yes, I said it. That's the only way. But there has to come an acknowledgement of what was broken, which was a person's humanity. We also have to look at the instrument and the system of labeling that allows a person to put a label on another person, and then you have no conscience towards it. So you got to look at the losing of conscience, because the Bible says that the love of many will grow cold. And so people's conscience are being taken when these labels are put out here, when white supremacy is weaponized to potentially kill a person. You saw that in New York in Central Park. And you also seen it when it comes to Rosewood, Florida, when it comes to Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. So I'm going to tell you, if you want to see how white privilege works, look at that movie Rosewood. Seriously, if you want to look at how white privilege works, look at the Central Park 5, who are now the exonerated 5. Look at how privilege works and look at corrupt police systems. And even after the fact, people will rather believe the lie than embrace the truth that these men were not guilty at all. But people still, even our current president still says that they're guilty. So my question to you is this. When are we going to wake up? When are you going to wake up? Because this is more serious than what you think. And it's making people look at it. When you can watch a person die and still say to the group of people, y'all need to forgive no matter what. Seriously? Seriously. And to those who have assimilated, my Asian brothers and sisters, how is it that you can talk about we need to protect the Asians and they shouldn't be, victims of racism, but yet stay silent on the racism that you give out? You can't have it both ways, man. You can't tell somebody, hey, don't be racist towards us, and you be racist. Or prejudiced, rather. You can't sit up here and say, don't be prejudiced or don't have your racism come towards us and then tell other people, no, and still act like that. You can't act like you're oppressors. So that's what grieved me when I saw the Asian police officer keeping people off of his partner, because he is more committed to white trust and a blue badge than he is his brother who is being killed on the ground, because his race and group of people and culture that he's come from has been oppressed. So don't sit up here and tell me, man, that You trying to look out. Yeah, you are being a lookout. You're looking out. Looking out to make sure that this person kills this guy. And you heard the cries, but you kept people back. And you didn't say nothing. You didn't do nothing. And now all of a sudden, the crazy part about it, now we got all these cops talking about what they ain't going to do. Y'all should have been said something with Rodney King. Y'all should have been said something with Eric Garner. And I understand that the job is hard. But my question is, where are all these good guys at when this goes on? Seriously, where is it? I have yet to see a video of another cop getting with another cop about the stuff that he's doing. Seriously. I ain't seen that yet, but I've seen videos and PSAs. I've seen that. I've seen the pledges, but never have I seen one cop confront another cop in the field about his racist tactics or excessive use of authority or his excessive use or even killing. I've never even seen another cop draw on another cop who was getting ready to kill somebody. You ain't going to see it, except in the movies, maybe. Because I'm going to tell you, man, when they become police and they are sworn in, they are more assimilated to protect that badge and what goes on in the police than anything. They pledge more of allegiance to that badge than to the flag. And I'm going to tell you that right now. It ain't about community. It ain't about flag. It's about that badge. And they will look the other way knowing that stuff is going on. Because you've seen it with the Breonna Taylor case, how they were angry and wanted her boyfriend to be charged with attempted murder, but yet they messed up. They messed up. You mess up, you get the wrong house, you kill a person, and then you act like that the person is not supposed to protect themselves. How compliant do you want us to be? So on that note, listeners, I just want to tell you guys, look, these streets, man, you're going to have wisdom, and you definitely need to pray because these streets are dangerous. We dealing with injustice and pandemic at the same time, and we need God's wisdom, and we need prophetic voices that are going to cry aloud and spare not, and not be a respecter of persons. But this is what you see right now when they tell you, black person, you need to forgive. So, hey, I want you guys to be blessed. And I want you to check out my video that I did on Facebook this morning about the sin of assimilation and the silence of the church. And so I'm calling this message right here, the white shield of faith. And I'll be on Facebook on Friday morning. So check me out on there. So I want you guys to be blessed. We out.
Walk in the truth that makes you free every day. Follow Brother Leon on all social media outlets.